Canada is staring down the barrel of a potential trade confrontation with its closest ally and largest economic partner, the United States, as President-elect Donald Trump reasserts his determination to impose sweeping tariffs on Canadian exports. Welcome viewers to my channel. Please subscribe, like my video and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next update. With his inauguration just days away, anxiety is building in Ottawa, Wall Street, and across key industries on both sides of the border. The stakes are immense. Canada and the United States are tied together through one of the most integrated trading relationships in the world, and the outcome of this looming dispute could redefine the future of North American commerce. For Canada's leadership, the moment requires both resolve and restraint. Mary Ng, the country's Minister of International Trade, sought to project both during her Thursday appearance on CNBC's Squawk on the Street. Standing in New York, just blocks away from Broadway, whose famous lights are powered in part by Canadian electricity, Ng sent a clear warning: Canada will not hesitate to retaliate if Washington chooses confrontation. Everything is on the table, she stressed. Her words were a signal not just to U.S. policymakers, but also to global markets, that Ottawa is prepared to defend its interests, even if that means entering into a bruising trade war. Among the measures being considered is a dollar-for-dollar retaliation plan. This strategy, often used in trade disputes, means that for every dollar of tariffs the U.S. imposes on Canadian goods, Canada would impose an equivalent amount on U.S. exports. But Ng went further, suggesting that Ottawa could also consider export taxes on oil, natural gas, and electricity flowing southward. Such a move would strike directly at the heart of U.S. energy security. I don't think Americans want us to stop selling electricity, oil, and gas, Ng said pointedly. Because if you do, what you're really doing is making life more expensive for American consumers. The timing of Trump's threat is significant. He has pledged to enact a blanket 25% tariff on all Canadian exports immediately upon taking office. This is not a targeted measure against a single sector like steel or lumber. It is an all-encompassing move that would affect cars, agricultural products, metals, consumer goods, and more. At the same time, Trump has revived his hardline rhetoric toward Mexico, another partner in the USMCA, while also promising a fresh 10% tariff on Chinese imports. These simultaneous moves suggest an aggressive return to protectionism as a cornerstone of his economic policy. The consequences for both nations could be devastating. In 2022, Canada purchased more American goods than any other country, outstripping even China and Mexico. It was also the third largest exporter of goods to the U.S., behind only China and Mexico. The sheer volume of cross-border trade is staggering. Goods and services worth nearly $3 billion move between the two countries every single day. That flow sustains millions of jobs in both nations, from auto workers in Michigan and Ontario to farmers in Iowa and Saskatchewan. Ng's warning about the humble candy bar underscored how deeply intertwined the two economies are. If you're at a supermarket buying something as simple as a chocolate bar, odds are some part of it is Canadian. If it's $4 today, you could be paying $5 tomorrow, she said. Her message was clear. Tariffs do not simply punish foreign producers, they rebound on domestic consumers and industries, raising prices and complicating supply chains. Behind closed doors in Ottawa, officials are already preparing for escalation. A list of American products that could be subject to retaliatory tariffs is being quietly assembled. Historically, Canada has taken a shrewd, politically calculated approach when drafting such lists. During Trump's first term, when he imposed tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum, Canada retaliated with tariffs on American exports like ketchup, beef, and chocolate. These products were chosen because they originated in politically sensitive U.S. regions, swing states and districts represented by powerful lawmakers in Congress. The goal was to ensure that the economic pain of a trade war would be felt directly in areas that mattered most to Trump and his allies, thereby creating domestic pressure to resolve the dispute. Whether Canada will repeat that approach remains uncertain. Ng has hinted at a desire to chart a slightly different course this time, one that seeks common ground before retaliation escalates out of control. One potential area of compromise could be border security. Trump campaigned heavily on promises to secure America's borders, and while most of the rhetoric focused on Mexico, Canada has signaled a willingness to work with Washington on tightening northern border controls as well. By offering Trump a policy win in this domain, Ottawa could potentially defuse some of the tariff threats while maintaining goodwill. Another potential olive branch comes in the form of defense procurement. Canada is heavily dependent on U.S. defense manufacturers, sourcing about 70% of its military hardware from across the border. Ambassador Kirsten Hillman recently noted that Ottawa is exploring new purchases of American-made equipment, including fighter jets and drones. Ng confirmed that such options are under review, repeating her mantra that everything is on the table. For Trump, who has long portrayed himself as a defender of American manufacturing jobs, such contracts could provide a politically useful narrative, American companies winning lucrative defense deals from their northern neighbor. Still, even as Canada seeks points of cooperation, Ottawa is accelerating efforts to diversify its global trade relationships. For decades, Canada's reliance on the U.S. market has been both its greatest strength and its greatest vulnerability. Roughly 3/4 of Canadian exports head south of the border, leaving the economy highly exposed to shifts in U.S. trade policy. Recent years have therefore seen Ottawa doubling down on agreements like the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership, CPTPP, and the Canada-EU Comprehensive Economic and Trade Agreement, CETA. These deals, which provide Canadian businesses preferential access to markets across Europe and Asia, are part of a broader push to ensure that Canada has alternatives when U.S. politics become unpredictable. The current crisis is unfolding at a particularly delicate moment for Canadian politics. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, who navigated the country through earlier clashes with Trump, abruptly resigned earlier this month. His resignation came just weeks after Chrystia Freeland, his deputy prime minister and finance minister, stepped down amid disagreements over trade strategy with Washington. Their departures have left Canada in a state of political flux, with Mary Ng suddenly thrust into the spotlight as one of the most important voices shaping Canada's economic response. Her assertive tone in New York suggests that she is prepared to carry the mantle of leadership in this high-stakes moment. For Trump, the tariff threats are consistent with his broader negotiating style. Throughout his first term, he often used the threat of punitive measures as leverage to force concessions at the bargaining table. His tactics during the renegotiation of NAFTA into the USMCA followed this pattern, with harsh rhetoric and tariff threats giving way to eventual compromise. Yet, the scale of his current threats, 25% tariffs on all Canadian goods, is unprecedented. If implemented, they would constitute one of the most significant disruptions to North American trade in modern history. The stakes are not merely economic. A full-blown trade war could erode the political trust that has long underpinned the U.S.-Canada partnership. Beyond trade, the two nations cooperate extensively on security, defense, intelligence, and environmental management. Disruptions in one domain could spill over into others, weakening a partnership that has historically been described as one of the closest in the world. Analysts warn that the integrated nature of the North American economy makes tariffs a particularly blunt and damaging tool. Automobiles assembled in Detroit often cross the border several times before completion, with parts moving back and forth between Ontario and Michigan. Energy grids in the northeastern United States rely heavily on Canadian hydroelectric power. Agricultural supply chains link prairie farmers to American processors and retailers. A 25% tariff on Canadian exports would not only hurt Canadian businesses, it would disrupt these cross-border systems, creating chaos for U.S. companies as well. For now, both sides are locked in a tense standoff. Trump has not yet taken office, and his threats may ultimately serve as bargaining chips rather than settled policy. But Ottawa cannot afford to assume that this is mere bluster. The scale of the potential tariffs demands preparation. That is why Mary Ng's message was as much a warning as it was an invitation. Canada is prepared to retaliate, but it would prefer cooperation. I think we have a unique opportunity right now, she said, for Canada and the United States to build not just a stronger economy, but a stronger North American economy, by working together. Whether that vision prevails will depend heavily on the choices Trump makes in his first weeks back in office. For Canadians, the experience of the last Trump presidency offers little comfort. For Americans, the danger is that policies intended to project strength abroad could end up undermining prosperity at home. And for the world at large, the outcome of this standoff will signal whether North America is turning inward into protectionism or outward toward deeper global engagement.